Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to this edition of the podcast, where I'm joined, of course, by our resident genius, Ralph Hebgen. And today we're going to talk about two things. We're going to talk about, firstly, we're going to talk about TrumpRx, and then secondly, we are going to be talking about Grief AI. As a quick thing for TrumpRx, so this week we saw the effective launch of a centralized system for medicines. And the idea is that individuals can, if they know the name of the medicine they want, they go on TrumpRx and, on the or TrumpRx.org or whatever, the website. They type that in, and then that they can then buy direct from, let's say, Pfizer or GSK or whatever. So that's the idea. It's all part of this whole promise that Trump said he would make, because he feels that Americans are overcharged for medicines, and that they are effectively being subsidizing drug sales overseas. And that's what he says. His oft used example is the one of, I think, Ozempic or something, where he said a friend of his would fly. He said it's wrong that a friend of his would fly to, say, the UK and get a treatment or shot, for $80 or something, versus the same thing in America being $1,200. And he says, obviously, that's not right. So this system appears to be to sort of address that issue, and it was launched, and there's initial agreements with Pfizer. So we're going to talk about that. The other thing we're going to talk about is Grief AI, and Grief AI is all about AI used for people who die, but then this particular this software, what it does is it interviews the people, obviously, before they die, and then it then basically creates effectively an avatar of that person, and so when they depart, the people that are left behind can interact, which anyway raises all sorts of issues, but we'll talk about that later. So let's start off with TrumpRx, and on the surface, it seems like a reasonable thing, right? I mean, you saw something on the White House website that essentially boasted to that effect, didn't it?
Well, it announced it. I mean, basically, yes. I mean, first of all, let me be clear. This is TrumpRx. This is not TrumpRus or anything.
Yeah.
So funny. Unbelievable. Yeah. You guys, I'm still German. I've been working on this joke for the last 10 years.
Nice.
Right. So, just in case anybody is wondering what the RX stands for, Peter and we worked this out. This is apparently coming straight from medieval times, where apothecaries put the symbol RX on the various medication jars and etc., wherever they kept the herbs, and it just basically means prescription. So TrumpRx is a website which basically means Trump prescription, and it allows a patient to purchase drugs from companies directly through the website without having to involve some form of intermediary. And it's all reasonably difficult to understand, I believe, for somebody who is not well versed in the intricacies of American healthcare, which is me, Yeah, excellent. But a few thoughts, perhaps in bullet form. First of all, I believe. There's no I believe in there. It is the case that pharmaceutical companies incur a huge amount of costs when they are researching and developing new drugs, and then manufacturing drugs which have been in existence for some time. This is, of course, not true for every drug, but it is true for many drugs, for the majority of drugs. So the fact that medication costs a lot of money is not in essence a new thing, nor is it surprising or indeed alarming. It's just part of the manufacturing process and research process which goes into the development of medication. The reason why some markets offer drugs which appear overpriced lies in the fact whether these markets are competitive or subsidized. And the American market is not. Let me say that first, and then we delve into a little bit more detail. But in and of itself, the American market is not subsidized. It is a freely competitive market, and companies are therefore able to charge whatever the market will support. The end customer, the patient, however, also in America, rarely sees the actual cost of this, because they are either, this is now specifically in America, they are either the beneficiaries of health insurance. They have taken out private health insurance. This indeed is the majority of the Americans. 90% of Americans have private health insurance. So either they have that, or they are means tested on low income, in which case they are eligible to being beneficiaries of the two large public health schemes, which is Medicare, which is for the elderly and disabled, and Medicaid, which is for low income demographics. And if you now go and see the equivalent of the GP, apologies for not knowing what that person is called in the US, but the equivalent of your GP in the US, you have your consultation, then you get a prescription, then you go off to the chemist in the UK, I think in America would be the drugstore, and there you will then get your medication. It will be part of the premium you pay to the health insurance company. So if you buy it through through your private health insurance, the drug is not going to cost you a lot. It's kind of, I looked this up, between $0 and $20, $30, that sort of thing. That's your excess if you have private health insurance. If you're Medicaid, it is enshrined in law supporting Medicaid that the drug must not cost more than either $4 or $8 for different types of drugs. And so that ain't very much, is it? So I mean, basically, for the administration to claim that the drugs are overpriced, if that is a valid claim, it is a claim that relates to the theoretical price which the companies charge somebody. But that somebody is either the health insurance company, which passes this price on through the premium to the insurance policyholder, or it is to the Medicaid organization which purchases the drugs and then dispenses them to the beneficiaries registered to the registered beneficiaries in Medicaid. Briefly, in other countries like the UK, for example, there the market is not entirely free, and companies here cannot charge whatever the market bears, because the NHS or NICE and its purchasing power mean that the prices are, first of all, discounted, and second of all, they're capped at a certain level.
Sorry, just got to say,
yes,
NICE is, just for listeners who don't know, NICE is, I think, it's the National Institute for Clinical Excellence.
Yes.
And that's the body that basically they look at, they look at all the drugs that are available, and they judge the efficacy versus the price. And then they say, well, yes, then they basically put it on a list of whether the NHS can use it. And as a result of that, they have very big buying power, and they have quite a lot, they have quite a lot of sway. So
Yes,
sorry, I just
exactly.
thought I'd quickly put that one in.
No,
But
that's
yeah, carry
exactly
on.
right. And this situation is directly analogous, though, to Medicaid in the US, because they also have this same sway and they have the same buying power, and that is why they're negotiating large discounts from the incumbent pharmaceutical companies in the US. And now what we have here is that of course somebody needs to bear the cost, so you might say if the cost of manufacturing and if the market was regulated in the US, therefore less competitive, and pharmaceutical companies domiciled there would as a consequence not be able to charge whatever the market bears, but would be maybe capped to some level, then of course anybody who buys these drugs would be economically better off. Specifically, health insurance companies in the US would then be able to offer their services at lower premiums, and that is how it would then be passed on to the consumer. The Trump administration has made it one of their promises to the US citizenry to lower the price of drugs. Even so, the actual price is rarely encountered in reality. And it is now possible to purchase drugs directly from companies. I think the situation is currently such that it is planned to get this live early in 2026. The way in which the TrumpRx website is planned to operate is that it is basically a website on which you can search for drugs, and then that will link you through to the company which manufactures that drug. And currently, the only company, to my knowledge, with which a deal was struck is Pfizer. And Pfizer sounds like a German name, and it is, but it is a US domiciled company. Let's just be clear about this upfront. And I will just read out from the White House website. There are currently, so it's Pfizer, and they give 3 examples of the sort of drug which you would be able to purchase there. One is Eucrisa, which is an ointment for dermatitis. The other one is, I can't pronounce this. This is probably Xeljanz. Pharmaceutical names are just beyond me. A widely used oral medication for rheumatoid arthritis. So we're not talking about, like Listerplast or something. These are proper drugs for complicated conditions. And something called Zavzpret, perhaps, a commonly utilized treatment for migraines. Now, so that's the sort of thing which you can currently expect to be able to purchase through the TrumpRx website when it goes live in early 26. Now, interestingly, now research this is correct. It shocked me a bit, but probably only because I'm naive. I'm not saying that this is different in other countries. If you wish to purchase one of these migraine treatments, these are basically like nasal sprays.
Right.
This is not like complicated, like something which you have to inject or which has to be administered by a nurse or a doctor. This is just basically nasal spray. This costs you for a month's supply $1,200. $200. Now, if you purchase that through the TrumpRx website, when it is live, it will be discounted, this particular one, by 50%. So this is now available for the cut price of only $600. But you might ask yourself, when you're a patient in the US, well, I get it for like $6 through my insurance company. Or if you're on Medicaid, if it is available on Medicaid, I'm sort of tempted to think that migraines may not be something which you get through Medicaid, but if it was, then it would probably be free through Medicaid or cost again, like maybe a surplus of maybe up to $20 or so. So there's the patient now, and you're thinking, well, I don't know, what should I do? I mean, this is now available directly. It's an excellent thing. I mean, it costs $600, but I get it for 20. I don't know what you would do, but I think the decision here is clear. Now, therefore, I'm not trying to be funny now. Therefore, I am looking a little bit for the obvious benefit here to the patient. It is possible that if there is such a benefit, it will emerge over time in an excessively indirect way.
Yeah.
Because if we are now looking at a market which is actually becoming sort of implicitly regulated, perhaps
Yeah.
by imposing a cap on the drugs, then of course over time this might result in something where the insurance companies also would buy this for less. But this is unclear because this is not designed for insurance companies to purchase the drug from Pfizer. This is designed only for private individuals to go direct. And importantly, this is an important detail which we need to bear in mind. You cannot purchase the drug through TrumpRx if you're using health insurance. This is a very important point. So
Yeah.
basically, if you say I'm using my health insurance and I go there, that doesn't work. It's only if you either don't have health insurance or if you elect not to use it. And so you can see where this is already going. This appears to be something where the Trump administration has negotiated so far with Pfizer, but other companies are to follow, a discount which doesn't immediately, in an obvious way, generate any benefit for the end consumer, for the patient, but clearly delivers on one of the administration's promises made during the campaign trail. In fact, I go back to the White House website, and the third bullet point here says that it is delivering, quote, on promises to put American patients first, unquote. So promises. So they're delivering on a campaign promise. But unless I'm missing something, which is possible, it appears to be window dressing rather than delivering substance. But there are some other aspects here as well, which are important to keep track of, and that is that elsewhere, Trump has put material tariffs on pharmaceutical products. Now, going back to this is, by the way, why I wanted to highlight this earlier. Pfizer is an US domiciled company. So you might now say, well, that means that they are not really impacted by this. But this is not true because the pharmaceutical companies or industry is embedded, enmeshed in a complex web of supply chains, and a lot of imported ingredients go into the manufacturing of the drugs. So Pfizer would be impacted by the Trump tariffs, but the Trump administration has said in the negotiation of the deal with Pfizer that Pfizer would be exempt from the impact of these tariffs for a period of 3 years.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, as a sort of little impish comment, would sort of Trump keeps claiming that the tariffs is money which is paid to the US from foreign countries. Well, if it is, then you wouldn't have to exempt Pfizer from the impact of his tariffs. So I mean, basically, there's a little bit of an inconsistency there, but let's gloss over that.
Yes. Yeah.
So anyway, so that's an aspect which we need to keep in mind. And also, and this is the final point which I wanted to make, then I play the ball back to you. The other part of this is, of course, I mean, now I was just commenting on the import part of it, but the other part is that there is another aspect in the negotiations of this deal, and this aspect has been called the most favored nation part. So most favored nation is a concept in international tariffs, where basically you're saying that if a country negotiates a tariff reduction with one country, then it needs to deliver this benefit to all other countries with whom it trades. And so here this is similar. The most favored nation clause here means that Pfizer needs to offer in the US the drugs which it sells at the lowest price that it sells these drugs anywhere in the world. So if it offers this migraine thing, the drug for $1,200 in the US, but for, let's say, $100 in the UK, then it now needs to offer it also at $100 in the US. Which sounds excellent, and again, that is something which would indeed lower the cost of drugs in the US. But the most favored nation clause only means that it needs to offer it at the lowest price. So if it's $1,200 in the US and $100, say I'm inventing this, in the UK, then yes, one way of reading this stipulation would be to say, well, this is excellent. So basically now it's $100 in the US. But what Pfizer can, of course, also do, it can increase the price at which it offers it in the UK, 2,200 or 300, and now the older price is the lowest price. I'm making this simplistic. I'm not saying this is exactly what is going to happen. But what I'm saying is that the most favored nation clause is you can get around it in this way. And I'm sort of expecting, therefore, an impact from this to be inflationary on the cost of drugs sold elsewhere in the US. That's not something which the US administration themselves would be as a sort of unintended consequence, because America first means America first, and it doesn't, they don't care what happens elsewhere. However, that would be an unintended consequence perhaps, and therefore negative for every country which is not America and buys drugs from America. So that's kind of what I have to say on this, just to elucidate what my thoughts are on the dynamics of this development.
I mean, I think totally right. I mean, in terms of the old, the effects on everywhere else is going to be, is going to be negative. I mean, everywhere else, the drugs aren't going to get cheaper anywhere else. So yes, I mean, I think, a lot of people are potentially going to suffer, probably not right immediately, but as time goes on, I would imagine that everything's going to get more expensive. And then you have that's going to add to all the already pressured consumer. And that's just not going to be great for economies in general. I also, is it going to affect R&D? Because maybe if drug sales go down, are they going to want to increase spend in R&D? Is it going to affect countries in the way that they prescribe medicines? I mean, it's quite interesting because I've found. So, I mean, obviously, I've had experience in predominantly in the UK and Japan, and it feels like here you go to GP and you describe your symptoms, and they'll just sort of invariably say, yes, bed rest and lots of water, etc. Good luck, thanks very much. Whereas Japan's really amusing in the sense that if you come away from your doctor and you haven't got any pills, you feel hard done by. It's like, why is that? And other people will say, how did it go at the doctor? And you'll say, well, I mean, I didn't get anything. And they go, well, you need to go to another doctor because they haven't given you anything. And so I think it's quite interesting because I do wonder whether, I think there's a bit of a cultural thing, that goes on. And I do wonder whether, is this going to affect that as well? I mean, that's, this is more of a longer term thing, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is like that in Japan. You do kind of come away, like if you come away with nothing, you think, well, I've wasted my time.
Yeah, you're not laden down with pills.
Yeah.
So like a sack with slack written on it or something.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. So yeah, anyway, okay.
Yeah.
Should we move on to the next thing then? Right,
yes.
Okay. So
please.
So the next thing is grief AI. So I mentioned a few stories in What's This Daily this week about how there is some software out there where you can effectively make avatars of yourself in terms of not just what you sound like, what you look like, but in terms of your own personality. So effectively trying to recreate yourself for the benefit of others when you when you die. And I thought I was particularly interested in this because I know there's someone I know who a very good friend who what he's done is he is effectively trained a bot on ChatGPT on his personality and how he would respond to certain things. And the idea being that if he should die, he will die at some point, hopefully not for a very, very long time, but his kids would be able to speak to him and ask him for advice and things. And I thought that was a pretty, amazing thing. And I have to say that I've actually thought of, in the past, I've got two boys, and I sort of thought, well, I'd like to write a book on almost like, what I would like to teach you in life, and, like friendships and relationships, how people perhaps do well in their careers. Because I don't feel I've done, I'm not the most amazing person, but I have been able to see some really amazing people in my over the course of my various careers
in the mirror,
and I learn from what they've done as well, and and I just I'd like to be able to do that for my kids should I when I die, so which I also hope is not for a very long time. So I don't know, it intrigues me. It sounds good in a way, and I think that for some people it would be of tremendous comfort to be able to talk to someone beyond the grave. But what do you think?
Yeah, I also think I've been thinking about this for some time because, as you guys know, I have a good friend who is an AI entrepreneur, and he keeps me up to date what's going on in the world of AI. And he himself actually is developing or has developed a product which he calls synth. So these are synthetic humans, which he develops in different ways, but it is this type of synthetic human, which is basically a simulacrum, if that's a word, which I can use, of yourself. And we all know that things like Midjourney and the graphic engines which now support video games have become eerily good in capturing images, in creating images of human beings, but of course also in replicating actual human beings. Second point, voice cloning is near perfect now, if not perfect, with diction and inflection and timbre and everything is just exactly like you talk. Third thing is LLMs. We all know them by now. So to the extent that there is enough stuff which you said written down on the internet or somewhere else, or of course write downable, if that's a word. So you can basically write down lots of things of how you think in order to train this product. So these three things together should really enable a technology to create a simulacrum of you, an avatar, which talks like you, which kind of looks like you, and which is certainly imbued with the same kind of like thought processes as you. Now, and now we're getting into the weird thing, or at least in a second. Allow me first of all to say, on the face of it, it sounds like a really good idea to create a synth of you which survives you, and then your relatives. Let's make it specific. Let's talk about me, and let's talk about Debs, my wife. So Debs, one would assume, might not be reasonably happy with the fact that I'm dead. Let me hope.
Certainly hope so. I mean, I would certainly miss you, Ralph, for sure.
Oh, that's lovely. We're gonna have to check back with Debs, and I'll tell you whether she's happy or not.
Yeah.
Anyway, so joking aside, she would then be able to. Actually, no, let me do this the other way around. I can only ever talk about myself, not about other people. So if Debs died, I can tell you that I would be devastated. Now, the question is now, would it help me to interact with an avatar of my wife who talks like her, who looks like her, who displays the same thought process that I have become used to, or would I find it creepy? That's the first question. But the second question is not so much would I find it creepy, but would it actually help me to go through the transition period and at the end of the transition period come out as a psychologically stable, strong person who will have dealt with the grief in a healthy way? Or would the very fact that I am able to talk to Debbie beyond the grave mean that I would be, let's say, too weak to let go of that instrument, that tool, the crutch, and become properly addicted to it, and that would not be healthy. And that's the thing. That's where this is, and we don't really quite know, and I don't think you can have a general answer to that because everybody will be different. I can absolutely see that some people will be better off with that. It will ease the transition period. But I can also see that other people might actually fall into an addiction and will never be able to grow psychologically back into to survive the psychological trauma of the death of a loved one. So
I mean,
that's where that's where we
I mean,
are.
I,
I don't
I
know.
think that
What do you
that's
think?
it's very interesting, and I do think, it obviously depends on the person. I would also suggest that it depends on the way that person dies.
No, yeah,
If it's a sudden
absolutely.
death, then it's a huge shock. And I would have thought that being able to speak to your loved one from beyond the grave would be of huge comfort. And so I think that there's definitely a case for it.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
that
Yes.
I mean, another thing I just thought is, would you, if you are creating this, is there a temptation for you to create a better version of yourself? Like, so for instance, let's say that you had kids and you thought that you'd been over their lives, you'd been too strict. You could say, be me, but a bit better and less strict. But there's all sorts of things that you
Difficult
could,
one, yeah.
that you could do. And then there's all the, what about who has the IP? Who owns you? And, isn't this going to be like a subscription? If it's subscription based, what's going to happen at the end of your 6 month subscription? Do you go, does the avatar sort of pop up and go, I'd love to see you
That's
again?
all we have time for.
But unfortunately, I'm going to go forever if you don't pay $5.99. But actually, this month we're going to do a 20% discount. I mean, there's so many things. There's a lot right with this, but there's also a lot of questionable stuff.
And it doesn't exist as a product yet, I don't believe. These are all questions to be answered, but I do think there's a case for it, as you said. I think there is a market for it. It just has to be handled with extreme care.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
mean, I would certainly, just to talk to your earlier point, I would come back as a person with a sense of humor and no German accent. So
yes.
Bloody great.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, and I would be tanned more and mustard. And bright and suave and they were no good. And I would come back as a person who actually gets paid for the contributions on this show.
Yeah.
Because surely this is grief which I have to overcome. By the way, guys, I'm not paid on this show. I've never mentioned that before.
No.
This is every week I have to get over the psychological trauma of not actually getting paid by Peter, who sits over there.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop talking to camera now and I'm back in our conversation now. So basically, no, but joking aside, I wonder whether such a product, if it were ever to exist, should come with a it should be like temporary, with a health warning as well, but maybe temporary. When you sign up to it, after a year, 6 months, name a period, it fades and it disappears. Because otherwise, I do think that there is a real danger for some people to become dependent on it. And if, for example, in my case, if I were always talking to my wife, first of all, it's a bit creepy and not healthy, but also it would prevent me from moving on.
Yes, I
and
think so. Yes.
becoming a person. I mean, let's say this happens when we're elderly, and let's say so I'm an actuary, so the end of the actuarial table is sort of where the end is 100, but most people die like 80 to 90, that sort of thing. And so there's not that much time left for a person, and if that time is wasted in psychological focus on the person who is dead and you don't move on from there, maybe you can argue you don't live the rest of your life to the fullest and you're not all who you can be. But we won't be able to solve this because this is a very difficult thing. It is also very subjective. It depends on whoever you are, and clearly that product doesn't exist yet. But I do think there's a case for it.
Yeah. Well, it sort of does exist, but yeah, it's probably not fully
Does it?
formed. Yeah, I mean, yeah, these things do exist, and like I say, you can do this now with, you can create a bot now. You can do it. I don't know how good it is. I mean, the products now you have to like, it interviews you, and you have to answer loads and loads of questions, so it learns your personality. So it is out there, but it's just like, how's it going to develop? Which way is it going to go? I mean, the other thing I just wanted to quickly say was, maybe quite useful in the corporate sphere. So, for instance, Warren Buffett is going to leave Berkshire Hathaway to be replaced by Greg Abel. Abel, of course, is he able to carry? He is. He's going to be starting in January next year. Isn't that a good thing, maybe, to have an avatar of him that you can refer to, all that years of experience and stuff?
I don't know. I mean, that's almost the same thing, or an analogy with that. Would that not mean that the company cannot move on to the next generation?
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say him, and the other example would be Rupert Murdoch. He's passed everything on to his sons, and he's paid everyone else off. That he doesn't want to run his company, his companies. Again, would that help?
I don't know. I mean, on that one, I'm more skeptical, I have to say, because I can see that the human tendency to create idols would be supported by that. I mean, like Steve Jobs, for example, comes back alive, and alive in inverted commas. I don't know. I have to say with that one, I'd rather think that corporate leaders, political leaders, philosophical leaders, whoever, maybe it's best to leave people in the past with whom you do not have a direct emotional relationship. So with the emotional relationship, I can see there's a market. In fact, I'm going to do my own grief bot, helping me with my trauma for not getting paid on this show. I really do need that. Do you know, Peter? There's a good way of solving my issue. What do you think it might be?
I don't know. Buying your book.
Yes, that would be good. Another one would be, I don't know, paying me money.
Yeah.
Okay, just putting it out there.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Excellent.
I will certainly take that into account.
But of course, I know this is all lost on you. You're like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. So on that note, I think we'll have to leave it this week.
Lovely.
So thank you very much indeed, Ralph, as always. We'll be back again very soon. So I think the idea, I'm trying to restart the podcast, because I haven't really done very much podcasting for a while, so I'm going to be cranking it up again. Not going to be doing it daily like I used to, but probably a few times a week, in addition to Ralph, of course. And then the other thing I was going to say is that I'm going to be launching a competition this week. So probably out maybe Monday, maybe Tuesday, not quite sure yet. And it will be a very quick competition. It's for commercial awareness, and the whole thing is designed to help you.
Commercial awareness is important. First question, is Ralph paid to come on the show?
Yeah, here we go. Good. And on that cliffhanger, I shall leave you. But anyway, thank you very much, Ralph, as always.
Oh, no, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for listening,
Brilliant.
guys.
All right. Thanks, Ed. Bye.